I was a friend of mine. Thank you for coming. I'm really stoked to be able to have this conversation with you and dive in. For the folks that are watching, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Bruno Pozo. I run a video marketing agency here in town called Pozo Production. I'm wearing all the merch, in case you can tell. And the goal of that company is to help personal brands and brands cut through the noise online using video storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only been here in Bend 2 years, and so this company LLC is only about 2 years old. But prior to that, I was doing video production work in Los Angeles or LA for 2 years prior. I guess it's funny. I guess split in half now. 4 years, because it's officially 4 years I've gone full time into video production.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
It's like a significant amount of time.
I think so. Like it doesn't feel like it sometimes when I reflect upon it. I'm like, oh, 4 years. Like yeah, it has been a long time. But or it doesn't feel like it though. I guess is what I'm saying. Like I can conceptually understand 4 years is like yeah, it's actually like a commitment. Like most people don't even stay at jobs that long. But I've been able and lucky and fortunate enough to be in this industry 4 years and like be doing it full time. Yeah.
How'd you do it? How'd you stay in it?
How do I stay in it?
Yeah.
A lot of leads, a lot of LinkedIn. Surprisingly, a lot of networking too. I found networking events seem to work pretty well, especially if you come in with like a really nice attitude. Because I think sometimes there's a trap people can often fall into when it comes to networking where they're trying to like meet everyone or there's not like a specific goal. But if you just go in with trying to think of like what is the one connection you want to make, or like oh what are a few people you'd like to meet, or a few business industries you'd like to like be introduced to, that's like I find a better way to get around it. But yeah, luckily just and then also I guess super shout out to my friend Mateo who we started the video production company back in LA. He still sends me a lot of post-production work, so I find I'm usually most of the time spending at home editing more than anything because he just sends me things he films a lot of these conferences and stuff, and so I'm just editing at home, you know.
No, that makes sense. How did y'all meet?
Funny enough, he's a middle school friend of mine, so I met him I guess that would be 2010, wait, is that correct? No, I guess that would be 2007, sorry. 2007 would be 6th grade. And we just happened to go to the same school, right? And funny enough, he also was a twin, although he was an identical twin,
Right.
and I'm a fraternal twin, so I have a twin sister. He has a twin brother. And, you know, he just was one of the few kids who was in the after school program, like, you know, his parents would pick him up at like 5 or something, kind of like mine. And so we just hung out, and I didn't even consider him like my best friend or anything like that. We were pretty good. Like I loved hanging out with him. He was a funny kid. But I eventually moved. I moved a lot growing up. But it was the second semester of 8th grade, so it was like spring. I moved away, and so that tie was lost for about that would be 2010, and then I reconnected. Oh shoot, that's so funny to think. I reconnected for the 2020 because it was COVID. So I guess it was a whole decade. I've been saying like 7 years, and I'm realizing I guess it was a whole decade I haven't seen that guy. But he posted something on Facebook of all places of him driving his brother to San Jose because I guess his brother got a job. He works in higher ed. He I think does what is it called when you do initiation or orientation. Thank you. Yeah, that's what it is. He works in orientation. All that to say, I just happened to reach out because he posted something on Facebook. I was like, oh, dude, we should hang out. Like I didn't know you were still in like Porter Ranch. And so we met up, and he told me he was kind of tired with his sales role. He was doing sales for some sort of tech company. It escapes me now. But he was kind of getting tired and burned from it, and what he really wanted to do was like filmmaking and TV narrative work. And I told him like that's like exactly what I wanted to do, except for I was more like full feature narrative work. But he sort of planted the idea in me that we can just do it ourselves, and I hadn't really even thought of that. I guess I was so used to like, oh, we just gotta look for a job or find someone to work under. But he's the one who was like, oh yeah, I have an LLC, I can rename it, we can do this, and that. And I was like, if you say so, man, like that's the thing, sure.
Right.
And so the rest is history from there. He quit his job and moved back in with his parents, and I didn't have a job, luckily, because it was COVID, so things were like kind of calmer too, I think. So I came from me and him came from the ashes of COVID during 2021. So officially, I think we started working like that January.
Oh wow.
2021. So that's why I say 4 years. It's like officially, yeah.
Yeah, we
We'll
finally
pass
like came around to it.
Mm-hmm.
How did y'all have experience in the media field, or was it?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. No, like from a traditional education standpoint, he had did some media production and film classes at CSUN, which is the community, or not the community college, but the university in town. It's like really close to him. But like his major was in business, so he actually always had come from like a business background. But he had done some media classes, so he knew terms and like what a boom is and how to do gaffing and lighting and stuff like that. It's like just minor stuff. But me, not necessarily. I mean, just besides like I used to call it YouTube University. Just I had seen YouTube videos and things like that, but no formal training. It was more training on the job, right? Like when we go to shoot, we kind of figured things out. And then when we started making money, one of the first things we bought outside of the DSLR, because we started with our phones, so we used to sell like social media content, and it was a lot more passable when you're just like doing social media to do a phone. But when we finally got the DSLR, I told him like, oh, I'll just buy like an online course, and so I bought this filmmaking course. It's called 14-Day Filmmaker. Shout out to Anthony Gallo and Paul Xavier, I think his name is. Super, super, really cool guys. I've actually worked with them now. But I bought it was like $50. They really do cover everything that I needed to know, which started from camera settings, lighting, editing, and then they had like a small chapter on how to get clients, which wasn't that great, but they had like a separate course for that, so I kind of get why. Okay. But yeah, like I guess luckily all courses and on-hand or on-set experience is like my education really.
That's sweet. And did it take off pretty quickly? I guess you're coming out of COVID. And LA, it's a much more like built out market than in Bend. How was that experience for you to like grow the business?
I was very fortunate that Mateo, he was sort of the lead gen master. He was the one that got us all the business pretty much for the first 2 years and a half. I mean, I guess he still does now, but we're obviously separate entities. But yeah, to be to the point of like starting, I was just lucky that he was always like open to doing cold DMs, cold emails, cold calling even. I remember seeing him do that a few times, and I was like, even watching him do it gave me like nervous energy. I was like, oh gosh, it gives me anxiety. So it was kind of slow at first. Of course, I guess naturally we don't have like any portfolio, and we were just saying like social media content, so it was kind of social media management at the time, I guess. And actually the first client we ever got, funny enough, is this dry cleaners company. It's right across from Warner Bros. Studios. And so they got a lot of their business, which is kind of cool. And they had been around since, I want to say like the 30s or 40s. It's almost like a 100-year-old institution. Oh, wow. And basically we had just seen flyers of them in the trash at Mateo's apartment at the time, because he was living in North Hollywood, which was not super far from where that studio was. The studio's in Burbank. And that's like, I don't know, 10 miles or something. Okay. But we just happened to see a flyer in the trash, and he picked it up. He's like, why is this in the trash? He's like, oh, look, it's like this dry cleaner's not super far. I said, we should hit them up. And for some reason, I mean, God bless the owner's hearts. They were like an older gentleman. It was the son-in-law of the original owner. The original owner was Milt, and the dry cleaners, just for context, was called Milton Edie's. And so it's like this super vibrant pink, super flamboyant almost, right across from Warner Bros. It's super iconic. I bet anyone who works in Hollywood definitely is very familiar with it, just because I mean they do so much like wardrobe cleaning, and then famous people also send their stuff there for like the Oscars and stuff. So we just happened to I guess by the grace of that man who like gave us the shot, and Mateo's like tenacity of like actually going out, we got that gig. And then once we had that, it started to kind of snowball a little bit. It was still pretty slow. I felt like every few months maybe we'd get another gig, or we'd get like a potential client, and we'd do like a trial for them, like, oh, here's like an example of what we do for a day. And then we'd kind of try to close them later. But luckily, yeah, because of him, I would say he was the one. Like I didn't have any experience with that, or even like the desire to do that. It was, like I said, it just gave me so much anxiety. But luckily Mateo was that guy, and I would say we really took the ball rolling, I guess, closer to a year and a half, like 12, 18 months is when I think now like we had, established a portfolio. He still did cold outreach, which was crazy to me. But then we would start getting like more warm inbound leads and referrals.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty steady since then, luckily. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. It's neat. It sounds like, because sometimes in I feel like the entrepreneurial space, to do all of it as one person can be like relatively overwhelming. And it's interesting because it takes, I feel like, a very specific like partnership to not be like on each other's toes with it, right? Where it's like if you have no interest in doing like the lead generation, or not no interest, but if that's not something that like gets you like super stoked on, it's can be so helpful to have someone else that like fills that role,
Yeah, I totally agree. I just got lucky that for some reason Mateo was like, my yin to my yang.
Yeah.
We like really do make a really good match, like you said. And I do recommend that now to like people, ideally like, I think Daniel Priestley says this. He's entrepreneurship is a team sport, not a solo sport. And so he even recommends, even at the beginning, like you can like try to get interns or like, your cousin or someone to try to help you, even if it's just simple things like helping with like social media setup or like these like managerial tasks, like random tasks. Because like you said, it's tough doing everything alone. And I do think now in the modern age we live in, like 2025 and on, like it is definitely your capacity to work alone definitely is a lot more potential to do that.
Yeah.
But it still is like easier when you can have some support. Like you said, if you can find that balance of someone who has like strengths to your weaknesses and then your strengths are their weaknesses, that's like the dream combo.
It's so incredible too, because you run into the thing where like there's just not enough time, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like if you have to go out and film and then edit and also be like generating leads, it's definitely a cycle.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, now I'm kind of going through that here in Bend because I'm working alone, but I subcontract and I'll have you on set soon, which will be fun.
Cool.
But yeah, it's like so much nicer. I'm like remembering, oh man, it was nice when I had Mateo to like send LinkedIn DMs and follow up with people. He's so good about following up too. That's something that I still struggle with. I can even put it on a calendar or something, but like that was the secret sauce I think for us was he would just check in like quarterly or so with like people that like were like, oh, seemed interested but said not right now.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they weren't interested. He'd be like, oh, I'll check in. It's like, hey, has anything changed? Is there a new initiative? And he'll just follow up. And so many times there would be even like maybe not that first quarter, but like 6-12 months down the line, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, we do have something coming up. Do you have time to talk? And I'm like, damn, like what the heck?
Yeah.
That's tenacity to have that. And like, yeah, I'm just grateful, I guess, like that I happen to know that guy because it is a lot. Like trying to do all that alone is a lot.
It's interesting because I had one job where, and it seems like y'all caught it before it got like popular, but I had one job where I was building out like a semi-automated like sales system. We were sending out like 800 emails like a day, which is pretty crazy. And like the whole game in there is like you're trying to like avoid the Google bots from like flagging your emails as automated.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was wild because I developed like these spreadsheets with like how often you were following up, and you would like set the like the automation reminders that would just like auto like send the emails and like populate the email with the information that was relevant. And obviously we were doing it like at quite a massive scale, which is a bit obscene.
Yeah.
It's a pretty silly, like it was a very silly job. But on the other side of that, I imagine like that was before, at least like at the very like forefront of that stuff before it was popular. So to follow up and like remember and have all the notes to like call up the right people, that's a skill.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if he has a system or, like you said, it must be like he keeps an Excel sheet or notes. I don't know what he does. And then sometimes I'll even just, now I've gotten into the habit just because I've seen him do it so much.
Yeah.
I'll sometimes be like, hey, you remember that gig we did like last year? We should follow up with those people, like see what they're up to. And that's like worked out a few times. But yeah, like I bet now with like AI, you definitely have options where I think you could probably automate that.
Oh, it's wild.
So
especially
I definitely should.
Even like the leads, I'm sure if you do it on LinkedIn at all, but like the lead scraping that can happen, it's like kind of, I had never been in that world before until that position, and it like blew my mind. Like if you knew the right places to go to, like how you could like get to the right person at the right company for like the chance to talk to them. So
Not gonna pick it up?
Yeah, I was like, I'll cut that part out.
I'll leave it in, it's the best part.
Yeah.
I love these moments.
You're like, shit. You're like, man, you really do have your phone on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like so bizarre because, and I also realized like how important like lead generation is. Because I think that's like the biggest thing is like when you have a 9 to 5, right? It's like the work is always there. Like there's always work for you.
Yes.
The job is for you to show up and do the work that's like provided for you.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's quite the leap of faith to just be like, I'm just gonna create job opportunities for myself.
Yeah.
Which for me has been like a super fun like process and journey. And it's especially fun when it starts to work, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely like the best part, like when you get to reap the rewards of all that work that you've been sowing, like especially when it comes to lead gen, like you said, because it is such a iterative process and something you just gotta keep doing, and you might not see returns for, like I said, 3, 6, 12 months. But even here in Bend, I'm starting to see that like some people I had spoken to last year all of a sudden are sitting me up this year, and it's like, oh, like how nice, like all that seed I planted so long ago is now finally bearing fruit. And on that point that you mentioned about like the whole LinkedIn and all the data you can scrape, that was something I learned from Mateo too. It was crazy. I remember he showed me, he's like, oh yeah, we just look up like marketing directors, you can do this. He had Sales Navigator, by the way, so he was he had like the more advanced features. But even, you know, I remember he'd find, oh, and then here's how you pull up their email, like here's the company, like, oh, you just use this website, and they'll tell you like, oh, what's the format they use, because usually it's like name, sometimes last name at whatever domain, like company domain. And I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know you could just pull that up for free, or like, I don't know how, maybe you had some tool, but it was just shocking. I was like, yeah, it is like eye-opening when you get into that whole sales world. I was like, my lord, there's like a whole game here.
It's a whole, I mean, people are paid quite a lot of money to do it too, you know?
Yeah.
There's one plugin that totally blew my mind. Like you can pull up any website, and you just pull up the plugin, and it like runs a search on the web page, and it can tell you any email that's like like linked to that domain.
Yes. Yeah.
And like some companies definitely have stronger like protection. You know, every once in a while you'll come up in a company like probably has good IT, right? And you don't have any emails that pop up. But sometimes you see like their entire like catalog of employees. You're like, oh geez, that's like a lot to sift through. But yeah, it definitely wasn't. It was a really interesting skill to learn. It's definitely an interesting like place, sales. I think it's necessary for business, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you maybe are too, but more of a fan of the like actual creation side of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've come to appreciate, and I do like the game now of marketing / like lead generation in business. But of course, like, you know, my heart is always going to be like on set even. And editing to some degree. It's strange how like editing started off kind of like a chore, and I didn't really care for it that much. But as I've done it for, I guess, 4 years now, I kind of like it, and I'm good enough, I guess. People say I'm like pretty good, or like, I remember there's a great story where I was working with Mateo after a shoot. We had come back, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna start editing the video. I was like, okay, no. And I was watching him like click the icon, the razor tool. He'd click this. He'd click the hand tool. He clicked it. I'm like, dude, just use the shortcuts. Like, what are you doing? And I got first. I was like, you should never edit. I was like, your time is better used clearly on the strengths, which is getting us leads. Let me handle the editing.
Right.
And so ever since then, I don't think he ever opens DaVinci or Premiere Pro.
Oh,
Which I'm glad. I'm like, thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, because like it's just not worth his time, and it's clearly like, you know, he could learn it. Like you said, it's like all these hotkeys and like little things you can learn, but he's just so much better at the other stuff. And then also now he's just producing so much content. I'm like, I don't even think he has time even if he had the skills.
Cool. Yeah. That makes sense, especially if being like the person that's shooting, it's definitely a lot to like. I feel like that's one thing that is sometimes difficult to communicate is how much time goes into editing, you know? But yeah, that's really, really cool. And yeah, it's interesting the piece that in my mind of like, I try to explain this to people where I was like, if I handed you my camera with my settings, you could go out and take like the exact footage that like I get. It just depends on like how much time you have to like spend learning it, you know?
Yeah.
And to some degree, I feel like what I really like about media is the like how quick the feedback loop is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going out and shooting and then you like edit it, like you see it like very clearly what you did right and what you did
Yes,
wrong for like the end product. Have you had any like major learning curves in that process?
Besides like maybe some of the more basic mistakes, I think sometimes I remember I'd come back from a shoot, like you said, and we're offloading, and then I'm reviewing the footage in Premiere. I'm like, damn it, there's like no wide shots, or like there's like 2 wide shots, and that's all I have to work with. I'm like, oh my gosh, we were like way too tight. I'm like, okay, so now next time I'm like, okay, remember to sort of allocate more resources to here's wides, here's mediums, here's tights. And so there's like that happens sometimes. And then so that's like part of shot variety, shot size. I'm trying to think if there's any other issue. Oh, audio. Really like, I still don't even do this. I need to just buy the damn headphones, but like monitoring audio is so important, because if you record like say a 30-minute interview and then you realize in post that the audio was either not on or something was like ruffling the whole time, I mean, you're just SOL. There's nothing you can do. You just gotta like tell the client like, hey, we gotta come back at like no cost to you or something. Like, I don't know. Like, that's also like a hard conversation to have. So definitely like monitoring audio is like now such a, like even before we were recording this, I noticed you were like also worried about it, because it is such a important part of the video process that can be easily overlooked, and like it could really make or break a video.
Absolutely.
So like I'm just like, oh god, so like that's something that's like also like you said, it's like the learning curve is like you learn to appreciate audio a lot more as you start editing and things like that. But I'm trying to think if there's any other like editing moments or stuff like that. But another trick that comes to mind, and I learned this from, I think it was Luke Forsyth. He's this documentary filmmaker who posts on YouTube, and I've also gotten into the habit now. In one video file, I'll try to do wide, medium, tight, and I'll let it record minute, 2 minutes sometimes. And the editing software, because there's less files to open, it actually runs a little bit smoother. Versus how I used to kind of do it was like 10, maybe 30-second clips, and it was usually just one shot size. But now I just like let the puppy roll, and I've noticed that just it doesn't do like a lot for performance, but it does help a lot, or it does help make it a little bit smoother. And it's also nice that you can kind of see one whole scene kind of play out in one clip. Like little things like that for sure. And you're right, that's why I like shooting and editing. You do get like that feedback loop of like, oh, this was what I did wrong, here's how I can fix it, or oh shoot, now this is wrong, okay, here's what I should do next time. Yeah.
It's interesting, and eventually you like get to a product that feels good. Yeah. Do you feel like that's like pretty formulaic because I think a lot of folks like selling like social media courses and stuff are like, here's the exact blueprint you need to follow. Do you think that like in your progression that blueprint of like, I guess maybe it's different for certain forms of content, but like you get like 3 to 5 seconds to get people's attention, you like tell the story, the sound's really important, like as far as like the shot variation, do you think it kind of standardizes, like there is a certain like goal
format too, sounds like?
Yeah.
Definitely, and I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, and sometimes I kind of use that to my advantage. Like, for example, like a client video we do very often is like event recap videos, and I sort of have like this sort of template idea of like, oh, what is like a recap video? It's like you gotta set the scene, like where are we at, what's going on, kind of show some like build some anticipation or build some rising action, right? And then at the end sort of have some sort of epilogue where things wind down or people are maybe cheering, or you have some sort of like end like shot, and then you have, you know, logo stinger. And that's nice. And I also think, like you said, it toes the line of like, oh, is this too formulaic, is this boring? But at the same time, creativity sort of thrives in structure and limitations, right? That's where when you realize, oh, like I only have, for example, if you only worked with one camera angle and you only had like one setup, it forces you to kind of think a little more creatively of like, how can you make that work and tell something still compelling? And so there's a balance there. And I guess I don't mind like having formats, because I do think like, or frameworks is sometimes how I think of it too, because there's a reason why these sort of formats / frameworks exist. It's because they work, right? Our minds have, I believe I forget who might have said this, but our minds work in stories. Like the operating system of the mind is stories, and so if you want things to stick with people, you need to somehow fill it into that storytelling structure, and it'll be a lot more effective and stay in people's minds. And that's why like media works, and that's why films stay in people's collective consciousness for like decades and decades.
Do you think you were a good storyteller, or was like doing the media thing helpful in like developing that for you?
Oh, definitely it helped me a lot. Like putting in the reps, right? I feel it's strange to think, but I must have edited thousands of videos by now, which is crazy to think and actually like reflect upon, because it doesn't really feel like that. But then even just looking at within the last 2 years, I'm looking at project files like in Adobe, and I have like 300, and I'm like, oh my god, like what the heck, in just 2 years? I'm like, that's just like the project files. Within that, some of there's like short form cuts or long form cuts, and so it could be more. But yeah, like you start to develop that intuition, and like you said, you sort of build the skills of like storytelling. But I do think coming into the field, I had some base for that, just because of that was always something I obsessed over. So like I used to love TV and film, and so like I already had some preconceived notion and ideas and like mindset going into it, and so I have some base of that. But when you actually go out and shoot your own and start actually editing and stuff, I think you're right, you definitely sort of develop that and you build that skill, and it's still something I'm building today. I still don't think I'm at the place I want to be, especially when it comes to like sound design and that part of filmmaking. But I'm definitely like very happy, and like I think, I guess I'm just happy with like the quality I'm producing, and I always know there's always could be improved, but that's just sort of like the artist's plight, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like there is no end goal,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or like final. There's no project that's going to be perfect, and therefore like there's always somewhere to go from wherever you're at now. Yeah, it's interesting. I just talked to the last episode. We talked about this like concept of like a piece of art being, or like a song being like a timestamp of like exactly who you were as a creative at that given time. That feels so real for all sorts of content.
Yeah, that's so true. And when you say that, I even think sometimes I was like reviewing my demo reel from like even 2 years ago, and I was like, wow, like some of these I was like kind of embarrassed by. I'm like, oh, it's not so good. But then some of them like, this still holds up. Or like, this is great. Like, what the heck? I definitely, because I think we can often look back and be like, oh, our old work is so bad, or this, and that, and we can kind of be self-deprecating in that way. Yeah. But like, if you really look at it, like you said, sort of objectively, it's like based off of, like you said, that time stamp. It was just based off of the resources and skill set and knowledge you had at that time. And even then, like you start to realize, like, oh, it's not really as bad or as embarrassing as you might think. I think like artists just tend to be a little more hypercritical, of course, of themselves. Just
the classic, like we're our biggest critics, right?
Yeah,
or worst
100%.
critics. Yeah. What like a bit of a shift, but like what's your favorite kind of content to create?
Oh, good question. I guess the ultimate goal has always been narrative features, so like full-length feature films. I haven't done that, so I don't know if that even is technically what I want. Like, I guess like from first-hand experience. But I've done some skits and short films, and I guess that is like where I like have the most fun for sure. That and maybe music videos. Music videos though, it's a little different because I think I enjoy a music video when it's my concept and idea versus like if it's someone else's. I guess I've only done that once or twice. It's not as fun, but I'm sure like if I was bought into the idea more, or like if there was like some more creative collaboration there, I definitely love. I think I just like these music videos. They're just fun. Yeah. Like,
no, same here. Yeah, as you know. Yeah. As far as I wonder, it's like the things that make money versus the things that are like creatively like engaging. How do you balance that, and like what is the how do you manage like the balance between like needing to make money and wanting to just create for the act of creation?
I'm lucky that I have the YouTube channel as part of like that sort of creative outlet for me. Like I can just kind of make, technically whatever I want. I try to still make it within my niche and all, and I just like talking about filmmaking in general. So that one's still also, and then also it kind of does make some money, right? I have like affiliate links, and then now there's like AdSense coming in. So it's it's nice that I have that as a way of doing creative outlet, but it's funny you ask that question because now I am trying to get more into like, oh, what is just some projects I just want to work on just because I just want to be creative or have fun, right? Instead of like worrying about, oh, this is for a paycheck or oh, this is for this client or this person or I need to do it for the algorithm or whatever the case might be. And so my only advice there is that you just have to like kind of make the time. It's easier said than done though. I wish I had like more practical advice than that, but it's, once you, and I guess I'm also in a fortunate position where I do have enough leads and money coming in that I am able to sustain my lifestyle. And I would say almost, and it's been slowly growing, so I would even add, I'm like starting to thrive, which is a really nice place to be. It's like crazy to feel like I made it in that sense, right? Like, okay. And so now that's why I think that thought of like, oh, well, what are the creative things or what are the things that would bring me more fulfillment and enjoyment from my craft? Let me start doing more of those. I have finally reached that place just because financials isn't an issue. But at the start, like you said, like it is such a important part because if you can't sustain yourself with the job, like it's hard to even think creatively or want to do something creative. Then it's like, oh, you're killing time or you're not, making money. And so you just do have to hit that level where it's enough to sustain whatever your bottom line is. And then from there you just gotta find out like, oh, when's a good time? Like, oh, like I work these hours typically. It's like, oh, okay, maybe evenings. And then you're like, okay, well, what can I do in evenings? You can like maybe write. That's what I've been doing a lot. I just bought what is it called? A short film like blueprint or like a short film course, I suppose.
Cool.
And so like he has like a little blueprint and stuff, and I've been working through his exercise, and I have like a bunch of ideas now. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to sort through them. But yeah, now I'm just making time every day to just like write a little bit, and then eventually, I'll try to like reach out to people and be like, hey, do you got a weekend? Like we should do it on this day.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it's just really like you said, it does take a lot to find that balance of making money and then also enjoying the craft for enjoying the craft. Because I know that's why most of us got into this, because we love the art form.
Absolutely. It's the funniest thing. You like leave your job and it's like, I'm not going to work as much. And then you work like quadruple or like way more, but you're like, but I chose to do it. And so it matters, But it's wild because like it brings all the way back like psychologically. If you look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you don't meet like those base needs, it is so difficult to try and like create something purely for the sake of creating. There's just like this stress of, even while you're trying to create, the stress of like, but hey, like rent's due, or like, how's your fridge looking, pretty empty.
Yeah, I called out like my productivity anxiety. It's something that I guess I still struggle with. It's like especially during Monday through Friday, I guess I have this just because I do want, during work hours / work days, I want to be working most of the time, if not all the time. And so like if I'm not working within those Monday through Friday working hours, I always feel just so bad. I don't know what it is. It's definitely, like I said, it's definitely like a self mental block that I have. But it's just like you said, when you work for yourself, you don't have the luxury of like a consistent paycheck, like you said. So it is something that can weigh on you, and it's just unfortunate, I guess. So, but like I don't know, like you said, going back to your point, you chose to do this, and also it's in the industry that you like, and so it definitely is a lot more tolerable. It's so funny how like humans are that way. It's like when you're told to do something, it's like annoying and nagging, but then if you want to do it for yourself, and it's even though it's going to be 4 times the work or whatever it might be, you don't mind it as much. So it's just funny. It's all like mental and perception. So funny, like psychology.
Absolutely, yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's like, we work for like 12 hours, but it's like, but I chose it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the most bizarre. It's kind of wild because, especially like, and you've had like plenty of jobs in the past too. It is such a different feeling, and also because there's like a higher level of accountability, which is interesting. I feel like, or I guess like self-accountability in that, where it's saying like, because at the end of the day, like if I don't get a project done, like I said I was gonna get that project done, and and it's gonna pay my rent, and so you kind of, it does a weird thing psychologically where there's so much more, at least for me. I don't know if motivation, do you believe in motivation?
Yeah, I think so.
It's interesting, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I entirely believe in the concept of motivation, because eventually you just like have to do the thing, But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah, so what does motivation mean to you in this sense? Like, do you think like the feeling doesn't exist, or like the idea of like, oh, like, you know, because I think motivation, I think the way most people kind of refer to it is like a feeling of like, oh, I want to do this thing all of a sudden versus. Is that what you mean?
I think it exists. I think sometimes there's things that we're waiting for motivation for that motivation won't come. You know what I mean? Yeah, because there's just some things where like you're just not really excited to do it.
Yeah.
And like eventually, I guess the motivation comes from like sitting down and being like, I said I was gonna do it, like we're gonna do it now.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, especially on some things where like, I don't know, are we ever really that motivated to do dishes unless we have no dishes left, I guess, right?
Totally.
It's like one of those things. It's like it's only motivation until like you need to do it, sort of thing. Or there's no motivation until you need to do the thing because there's no other option. But I know what you mean. Like, so I guess that is true, and that's why I try to believe in like discipline and stuff. I do think there is something to doing something, even if the will / desire / motivation isn't there full-heartedly. And little tricks like that I've learned from like Ali Abdal, it's like, you know, just start for like 5 minutes and then just tell yourself if you still don't want to do it at the end of 5 minutes, then stop. But what typically happens is that once you get the ball rolling, it's a lot easier to stay in a task, even if it's something you're not motivated to do. And so, I don't know, like, yeah, I think you're right. Like, motivation can be like almost a myth in that way, where you're allowing your feelings or the idea of like, oh, I'll wait for the feeling of motivation to strike before I do something. And sometimes it's doing something before motivation that actually creates it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I noticed that like in college, if I had to write like a long paper, I would put headphones in like every single time. And it took like, after like a couple of years, there was times where I wouldn't even start playing music. I would just like put headphones in and like within like, and like open up the document or whatever and like immediately be able to like switch my mindset to be more focused.
Nice.
And it like still works, which is kind of wild. I feel like I trained that. So every time I put headphones on to like edit, I'm like, I don't want to edit. And then I like toss some headphones on, like almost not even knowing sometimes, or I'll like watch a YouTube video or something like that and like just slightly get closer to the process. Like I'm at least watching a video, so it's like closer to opening up DaVinci or Premiere, you know? But it is wild how it works.
Yeah, and I bet like also part of that is like if you have like a noise canceling one that also just kind of quietens the noise around you, and so it allows you to like sort of enter your mental state and physical state a little more. Because that's like sometimes I've noticed some people do that for meditation. At least that's what I've been told. It's like, oh, just put on like headphones and like an eye mask. And I'm like, oh, like that's like a nice little like subtle tricks like that where it just kind of forces you to not be distracted and not like fall into like, oh, what is my phone notifications, or what is this sound coming from, like, you know, a ring from my phone, all these like little things that take us away from the thing we're trying to do. And so like, yeah, like if the headphone trick works, then great, like, you know, I think that is something I have too, because you're right, I have like when I edit, so I have these noise canceling headphones. Like, I don't know, once I put it on and I open Premiere, it's like, okay, I'll just do it. And you know, it's tough with editing. I wish I could listen to music, but I can't. So it's typically, I guess, it is like kind of canceling out all the noise is what really helps.
You listen to the same soundbite for like 4
exactly.
hours
You're
straight.
hearing the same like 3-second clip, like adjusting lengths and stuff.
Yeah, like, it's the funniest thing when I'm like going in and adjusting things by like single frames.
Oh no.
And you're like, oh my jeez, man. Especially in the music, where if you're trying to like sing.
True, yeah, sure.
And stuff, it's kind of bizarre.
If you don't have it already in Premiere, you can have it where when you're scrubbing the timeline, you're like doing frame by frame, it's not playing audio. You can turn that on and off in Premiere. So on the timeline. So like, yeah, if you're adjusting frame by frame and you keep her like as you're like adjusting or like you're moving through, you can turn that off.
I didn't actually know that.
So and then you can turn it back on when you want it. So I sometimes do turn that off because it is annoying. Because like you said, like sometimes I'm scrubbing through B-roll, for example, and it's like I don't need to hear like whatever the like nonsense noise it is when you're like really quickly going through like, oh, where's that clip I'm looking for?
Oh man, that's the one sound that's like, it's Because nothing's leveled either, so
Yeah, exactly.
it's all
So,
over the place.
yeah, so and then sometimes I'll just mute the tracks, but
Yeah.
technically there is like you can turn it on and off in
Oh, cool.
some one of the settings.
Yeah.
If it bugs you that much, I would definitely recommend just turning it off.
No, that's cool. There's like so many things where it's like it didn't even like occur to me to do that. So
Yeah. No, it was some Instagram reel that like put it up, and I was like, oh, of course there's exactly. That was my reaction. So I was like, oh, I don't even think that was a feature. Of course, like you can turn that off. Like, what
I
the heck?
swear, those programs are so much more developed than like I'll ever even need to know.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I'm probably pretty sure I could use it for like 15 years, and then someone would be like, hey, do you know like this shortcut, like this hotkey that would like
change your whole
save
like
5 seconds per clip? And
you're like, what? I should have done doing this the whole time. Yeah.
Oh, it's wild. So you mentioned social media. I'm curious because you have like your Instagram and your YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You're also like on LinkedIn, which is a piece of it. How do you balance the like creation versus consumption, like specifically on social media?
That one's tough. It waxes and wanes for me, and luckily I think I'm in that phase where it's been balanced in the sense that I'm creating more than I consume. Part of the tricks I do for that is that I set specific hours where it's like during this time I can do whatever I want, and so it goes back to like the Monday through Friday work hours sort of rule I have for myself. Is that
like the 9 to 4 or something for you, or? For
me it ends up being 5 to 3 because we're up at 5, or maybe 6 to 3. Yeah, we're up really early in the morning. We're up at 5, and then maybe I guess closer to like 6:30 is like when I start working because I do some chores, I feed the dogs and feed the cats. But yeah, so it ends up being something 5 to 3 because then I go to the gym afterwards, and then I can finally just relax and I just allow myself to disconnect. Sometimes if Anna, my partner, is still working, she'll be like, oh, I'm gonna keep working for a little longer. I'm like, okay, and I'll just join her for a few more hours. But typically we do try to have that separation of work hours and personal life, that work-life balance people talk about. And so going back to social media and how I sort of balance that as well, I do my best, and I'm definitely not perfect, and it's definitely like when I'm eating lunch or something, I'm always having something playing, it feels like. But I try during those days, it's like, okay, until 3 p.m. I shouldn't open up YouTube unless it's for a work-related reason, like I'm looking up a solution to something, or whatever the case is, and even Instagram, unless I'm replying to a comment, or I'm posting something, or whatever the task is that I'm trying to do. Unless I'm doing those things, I try not to like scroll. And like I said, it's easier said than done. I'm definitely gotten, like I said, for whatever reason, this past like month, it feels like I actually have been pretty good. Ooh, another trick I'll sometimes do is I'll put a timer, like when I'm editing, and it's like 60 minutes. I'm like, all right, for 60 minutes, don't pick up your phone until it rings, and just focus on whatever task it is. And that also helps too. I don't know if that was, I forget where I might have learned that, but it's just like a silly like little trick that also helps. And so having those specific hours of like, hey, I can consume content and sort of like enjoy myself to whatever degree that is, versus like during work hours, either I'm creating content, that's 45, either I'm creating content, or I'm using those platforms for work-related purposes.
Oh, do you use any like, when you say like limiting yourself, do you use any apps to like lock socials, or do you just like not open it?
I just don't open it. And part of that is, I did this, once again, another Ali Abdal tip, but it's just, I think it must have been 3-4 years. Oh my gosh, actually, yeah, it must be like 3 years now. I just turn off all notifications on my phone, except for messages and the phone. So like literally text message and the phone are the only ones that have widgets. Actually, I turn off all the widgets, which is like the little counter on the top right corner of the apps. I turn all of those off because it's just too tempting if you see any number, even if it's just one, you just like, I gotta clear that notification. Like it's just, it is a mental trick that just happens on us. So I turn all of those off, and it's weird though, because I will say, I almost run into the reverse problem, because then it's like, oh, am I missing something? Let me check the app. So it's like a weird, funny game, but I do think in this case, it's the better of the two evils. It's definitely turn off the widgets. And then I also don't put any of the other like banners or like literally all the notifications for those specific apps. And then I also put it in DND mode, which is just do not disturb. And you can also customize it, which I didn't know until recently. And so I'll have it because I know some objections I've heard to using DND or any of those focus modes that the iPhones have is that like, oh, what if there's an emergency and no one can reach you? Well, I didn't know this, but there's a feature in there where you can allow certain people and certain contacts to still go through and notify you. And so I just put like, family members and my partner, and it's like, okay, only them can like reach me. And I mentioned to them, I texted all of them when I did this. I was like, hey, I have this feature where you can reach me when it says do not disturb, but if you see do not disturb, you just know I'm working. So only reach me if it's something really important.
Okay.
And then so far that's been work. No one's really reached out unless it has been like, oh, like I'm looking for something, can you help me? And you're like, something more urgent.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like little things like that. But no, I haven't gone that far as to lock the actual apps. I know that probably would be better because, like I said, not having the widgets, I did notice like a year in, I was like opening the apps a lot more just because I was checking if I got a notification, and I was like, oh my god, why am I doing this? And so that's when I started doing the timer trick, which was like, okay, don't open it until you're done with whatever this task is, and I'll put like 30, 60 minutes sometimes.
Oh, nice, yeah. It's fine. I wanted to get into that. I wanted to have like a separate timer too, like to not even have.
Oh, there you go.
Because it's interesting. Like I noticed that even like if my phone has a timer, and it's
check it,
like I'm bound to like swipe it at some point, right? And it's wild. Like there's like millions and millions of dollars that go into like capturing your attention, and then every creator wants to capture attention like within that platform. And so the chances, like the odds are pretty stacked against the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's why like all these little tricks people have to do to sort of prevent themselves from getting distracted. It is kind of unfortunate when you really think about it, because like you said, we're sort of like stealing attention, which I think isn't really the best for humanity, especially when you're talking about like, oh, we could be so much more productive or whatever it is they want to get accomplished. It'd be nice if like there weren't these nagging voices and all these people pulling us from a million directions. But we do have like now counter apps, which is so funny that you said, like the ones that lock, or you could even, and I'm not sure if like iPhones do this natively, but maybe it's an app, but you could even set it so that like during certain times you only have access to whatever those apps are. So like I think like the layout changes, so like you'll only see email, phone, or whatever the apps you allow. And then once the timer is off, it'll actually revert to showing you all your apps. I was like, maybe I should do that, honestly, but like, that's like the next step of like holding yourself accountable by like quite literally preventing you from even doing the thing you don't want to do. And I think that's like worthwhile to actually doing if that is something that is like holding you back. If you're like, I don't have the self-control. And like I said, I don't blame anyone for that. Like I said, like you said, they put so much resources into trying to get you to open these things and like hook you onto them. So there's no shame in that. But if you are struggling, sometimes you do need those like extra measures. And I think, it's a good thing.
I think the most wholesome one that I ever heard of was that like a friend of mine has a password that locks it, and then he doesn't actually know the password, like someone else, his friend like sets it for him.
That's so funny.
And so if he has to like go and ask like, hey, I really want to go on Instagram right now, like can I get the password? And there's so many more like the social barriers of doing that, of like, I told you I wasn't gonna do it, but now I'm asking for it. You know?
It's like a form of having accountability buddy, but like where they have the keys, which I like. You said it's like they hold all the power. And like, there's like other tricks like that. It's like, oh, you can make a bet, or not like a bet, but like a promise of someone. It's like, oh, if I don't get this thing done by this time, I owe you $10 or whatever it is. Like it's like all those little tricks, but it really works if like you're struggling. And there's also something to, like you said, having to come to someone or like have someone to account to, like having that social dynamic does like make you like want you to try ever that much harder, because you're not disappointing yourself alone anymore. You're like making the situation weird, or like you're disappointing them, quote unquote.
Or you like owe them a lot of money.
Or exactly.
It's like, oh man, I really wanted groceries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that little extra fire to like really keep you, and that's fine. Yeah,
it's true. It just depends on like the motivation. I wonder in that like realm, it seems like you've been doing it for 4 years, right? So you have like a routine and like the dedication to it. Do you have any like personal tricks, not business related, but like for your life, and like that contribute to being able to like show up consistently for your work?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I guess like self-care, I know that's like kind of like a generic answer, but I do think that partially why I guess I have some decent self-control and like these other like sort of healthier habits is because one, exercise, right? Like we need to be exercising. I think our bodies and humans just aren't meant to just be sitting down and like doing nothing all day. Like we are meant to be like walking. Like think like would they estimate like we used to walk like 19, 20 miles a day or something like that. So it's like we're not even getting like a half of that. If people are proud when you get 10,000, 10,000 is like manageable, but I think even that's like 5 miles. Like if you, or at least that's what my watch sort of calculated. We do that now. We've been doing 10,000 steps for just over a year now. Funny enough, yeah. So like having some self-care, because that just makes, I don't know, one, it makes life more enjoyable, and then when you're feeling good, you can like do things, right? Like versus like if you don't feel well, of course it's like easy to succumb to the temptations of whatever it might be. We're talking about social media, but it could even be like junk food or drinking or smoking, whatever it might be. And so part of so being able to take care of yourself, I think, is partially why. So like, I just do workout that, like I said, I do the 10,000 steps. I don't really meditate, but I was listening to a podcast from Ollie, and I can't remember the gentleman who was on. Like, this is not his name. I know he works for Dose Lab, which stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins.
Oh, cool.
And so he just does research into those neurotransmitters because they're like the ones that are like most popular, and they also do contribute to most of our mood and all these other things that sort of contribute, like motivation we talked about. And so on that podcast, he mentioned different activities you can do to sort of help balance each of them. And I noticed that the one that actually contributed to all of them, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, was spending time outside without technology. And so that was interesting. I was like, like I forget what exactly it was. There were different tests like for each of them, but essentially like having some time, I think even like 20, 30 minutes outside, just without headphones and just enjoying scenery and being out in nature and walking, that does so much to like sort of balance all those neurotransmitters. And so doing those 10,000 walks with my partner, just around our neighborhood, luckily we're like in Tumalo area, so it feels like we're out in nature. So I think partially why I think I might be a little more balanced was because of that. And there's a lot of other activities that he mentions to help with that. But I definitely think doing those things, and part of that's like meditation. I think I was talking about no headphones and stuff like that. So that's actually why I try not to, even when I eat now, I'm like trying my best. Oh, don't have to watch something. Just like sit down and enjoy eating. I'm like, wow, what a concept. But like, even that is like so hard for modern humans, it feels like. But having the time and space to just be quiet with your own mind. So sometimes I'll just have the headphones in, like you said, just for noise canceling, and then I just try not to like listen to anything, just like listen to my body or listen to my thoughts, and not to like attach myself to any one thought or anything. But just people I think are scared to like be bored, and that was partially what he mentioned in that podcast. That gentleman from Dose is like part of what restoring our dopamine neurotransmitters in stores is like just not doing anything and just allowing ourselves to be bored. And we're so often stimulating ourselves with whatever it might be, even if it's it could be a video, so there's like that visual and auditory stream that's coming at you, but then obviously like other things that people do is like there's always like listening to music or podcasts, and I was a victim of that too. I feel like that was part of like what made me feel productive back in the day. Was like I would do my morning walks and I would listen to a podcast and stuff like that. And so having learned that, I am now appreciating like those little moments of silence, and sometimes like you don't have to like always be like constantly stimulated as a human. And in fact, not being stimulated all the time makes you less susceptible to those distractions, or at least that's how it has been for me. And so those are some of the things that outside of business and more of my personal life that I think have contributed to, like you said, like that productivity and that ability to have a little bit more self-control.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last note on that, eating well too. And the only tip I have there, if there is one, is limit your processed food consumption. It's really all about just eating whole foods, as they say, which is just foods in their more natural state. And I can go into a whole tangent about that because I'm from a vegan background, but it doesn't have to be vegan. It just has to be whole food, which just means, like I said, the food in its most natural form. Obviously, you can still cook it. I don't think there's anything wrong with cooking. But like, if you can eat more whole food and eat less processed food, you'll also be a lot better mood-wise and also just like clarity of mind.
just as a baseline. It's funny, on so many of those, it's kind of obscene to say, but it's like a friend of mine was joking. It was like she runs without headphones, and we were hanging out with like a group of folks, and they were like, "You're what? You like run without music for like 10 miles?"
It was
like,
pretty hardcore.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I was like, man, it's actually a pretty recent development that we can just like spend long periods of time with so much stimulus.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's fascinating because I try to do that. I was like at the grocery store, like in a line, and I like don't pull my phone out and I don't have headphones in, and I'm standing there and I'm like, I feel like such a freak right now. I remember like anyone that like walks by looking at me, they're like, why are you not scrolling? You know, and that's obviously a blanket statement. There's like tons of people that don't, but it is kind of weird, like sitting in a waiting room or something like that, and you like look around, and, like everyone's scrolling.
I try to treat it as a game now, like you said. Like sometimes, like, oh, do I need to like pull out my phone or like distract myself right now? I'm like, no, I'm like, let's see how long I can go.
Yeah.
Or like you said, like I'm in a waiting room. It's like, oh, my natural instinct, I'm gonna get like 10 minutes. Might as well like, I don't know, scroll something.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, let me see if I don't, and I'll like pick up a magazine or something, or like maybe just like chill. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like it is like such a funny phenomenon when you really break it down. Because you're right. It is such a recent phenomenon. Yeah, like iPhone's only 2006, 7, whatever it might be. So it's barely even been 17, 18 years. Like, and we're already like being all this weird about it. But like, yeah, it's just technology just advances so much faster than like our psychology is like accustomed to. And we've been around like in silent. Like you said, like walking silently wasn't like some. I don't know. It was pretty normal, I guess, what I'm trying to say. So it is strange, and it is nice. Like I think exercise, it is nice to have music, but like speaking to your friend who runs, like I think that is like a testament to like you start to get more into your body and you can feel more, and it keeps you more attuned and more grounded. And when you're more grounded, like you said, it's easier to like not be distracted and do all these other like healthier things.
And maybe even listen to like your limitations too. I think about that sometimes where I've noticed that. Even whether it's like working out or like working, I sometimes notice that if there's too much going on, if I'm like listening to music, I can get into such like what I would consider a flow state, as far as like if I'm like editing photos or something goes, where I can listen to music, but I'll like forget about time basically.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm like, oh, also like my like work limitation was like I probably should have stood away from the computer like an hour ago, but because there's less awareness because of all the stimulus, I noticed that sometimes I like push past my own limitation in that, which is like good for productivity in the moment, but not for like in the short term, but not for like the long term. Is this sustainable?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like you said, like you're just not like fully aware of like all your physical and mental states. And a more like dramatic example of that is like if you were, for example, working out and maybe like not super attuned to that, and you're like listening to something that's like keeping your mind to help you push through pain, you might cause an injury, right? So it is true, like having that ability to step away from the stimulus and just like live within your body, I think does help, and it's a useful skill to have now.
It's just so it's weird because it kind of feels like it's become not the normal, and then you like start talking about it, you're like, wait, like I mean that kind of blows my mind. I haven't done the math on it, but the fact that the iPhone has really only existed for 17 years.
2007, 2006, something like that. It's not that long.
I
mean, it's like
we have like no idea what the long-term consequences are of this one, But who knows? It's wild. What a weird like generation to be living in,
Yeah.
Especially working in the industry that like is so driven by like technological advance,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's wild. Do you have any this is a bit of like a random one, but thoughts on like AI and its influence in media?
I think it's great. I like AI. I know there's obviously, I think it can be harmful in a lot of ways. But when it comes to art, I know there's the people who are thinking it's going to take away like painters and maybe eventually filmmakers. But I'm kind of on the opposite side of that, because I think sure, people can kind of create whatever they want at will with whatever, and they can make it look as amazing as whatever they want. But at the end of the day, like when as a consumer, if you start scrolling and all you see is AI generated stuff, you're gonna suddenly want to crave, I think, like real, authentic like content. And I also think of the example that comes to mind, like in the filmmaking industry, is CGI. Like people hate CGI, especially when it's done poorly. So like they're always like, oh, I wish things were just done more practically. And like that's what some filmmakers even like make that like their whole marketing. It's like Christopher Nolan's like, oh, everything was shot practically. We actually blew up this thing. We actually, you know, whatever
So
it was.
cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, but like I think to the point about the AI then. So I don't think ever filmmakers will be out of a job in that sense, just because there will always be, I guess, a market and a demand for real content or real films with real actors, with real lights and real people. And then it's been useful for me, I think, when it comes to the post-production side or even the pre-production side. I think AI is like super crazy because it just helps streamline certain mundane tasks, or can even improve your like copywriting or give you ideas. I use it as a thought partner a lot. I'll ask it questions, be like, hey, here's what I have an idea for this. Like, tell me what are the potential problems you see with it or whatever it might be. And then also on the post-production side, there's like great plugins for like Premiere or DaVinci that like almost edit for me or like can remove certain portions of text. Like I love the auto transcribe feature of Adobe now, and that you can do text editing, which is like insane to me. And now one of the plugins that I use is Firecut AI or Firecut app, I forget now. But it has like a captions feature, and that's like not super unique, but what it does, it'll even animate it, and you can do like, you can specify how you want to animate, like highlight certain words or like add little like jiggles to them or all these things. And I'm like, dude, if I had to manually like animate all this stuff or like do this color tracking of the word as it's being spoken, I would be like, pulling my hair out. And the fact that this thing can do it automatically for me, I just have to tell it like, oh, here's the color I want. Highlight the line, not the word or whatever. You can really customize it. It's really impressive, the app. And I love that AI just does it. I'm like, that's like one of the cases where I think AI is just gonna amplify human creation and creativity. But of course, I think it might have some disruption. I do think there are some negative consequences when it comes to media. But I'm just not fully bought that it's like gonna completely ruin it.
What's fascinating too, because I like mess around in some of those, and it doesn't like you still have to have someone checking it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like especially it's the transcribing sequences, especially for like long form content, to like be able to pull the entire transcript rather than having to like go and like actually listen back and
type it out.
Yeah, let me tell you, because that was the case, right? Like pretty recently, like in the grand scheme of things, and so it's wild because it cuts down, I mean, even for like, say you're like pulling shorts from a long form video, like it cuts it down significantly, but it still takes like to review and like make sure it's pulling like the right clips and all this stuff. It still is time consuming, which is to me wild, because like you're probably saving like tens and tens of hours, and you still need to put in like a significant amount of time to get the product. And it's funny, I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was saying, I think it was like Alex Hermosi with Acquisition.com. They're putting out like, I forget how many hundreds of pieces of content a week, but it was like an obscene number. And I was like, oh, that's just like physically impossible to do without like all of the like technological advances that we've seen in AI over the past couple of years. And you see it like in a couple like major businesses, right, that are putting out so much content and making like so much money, not necessarily from the content, but also like the business structures they have with it. So I don't know, that whole side of things fascinates me. I'm on the same side of you, where it's like you knowing how to use it and also knowing where its limitations are feel so important. Yeah, I'm really intrigued where it's gonna go in like the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's gonna definitely, like, we're on the cusp of some grand change. It's funny, I think in our lifetimes we've seen a few. It's so strange, you know. We got like 9/11, we got 2007 financial crisis, we got COVID, and now we got AI. So like there's like, and then even within that too, there's also a little checkpoint of like iPhone was created. So it's like so many changes are happening now, and I think it's such a great time to be alive. I feel very fortunate to live in the time we did, because I think even if I was even born 30 years, 40 years prior, I definitely would probably just have a normal job. I don't think I would have had the opportunity to do and create art like I do now. Like the fact that I can build my own business and create with such high quality content with these cameras that are also like so advanced now. Like the image quality and like audio quality is so accessible now. It's like insane to me. So I'm just really grateful. I think, like you said, I guess maybe I'm just like a tech sympathist or like a progression. Like I just I believe in progress so much. I just really I'm really excited and happy for the future.
That's what's up. Yeah, I feel similarly, and I think there's a way to be hopeful. There's a ton of chaos, right? But
for sure.
I think there's always ways, right? Like it's like, okay, but like, what can we make of it? Because we're here, right? We can't change that fact. So, it's like, what do you go do with it? It's a fascinating world. I had a thought and I lost it.
You take your time. I was talking about chaos, so many changes. I'm trying to jog your memory.
Yeah. Man.
Everyone
That's fun.
happens.
I do too, yeah. God, it was an interesting one too. Yeah. I'll let it go to the wind,
I hate when that happens.
It's
It's
no
okay.
worries. Yeah. But yeah. Is there anything, I guess, is there anything else that, like, for folks that, like, want to get into the industry or, like, want to kind of dive into, like, the entrepreneurial world that you would, like, advise or advise against? Yeah.
One piece of advice I would give to people who want to get into this industry, if possible, partner up. I definitely think, like we were just talking about it earlier, but having a team or having some sort of support definitely goes a long way when it comes to breaking through. Other advice, you definitely want to get comfortable with meeting people and being a little more social. I think creatives tend to be introverts, it seems like. I don't know if that's like a real fact, but from what I can tell, a lot of us tend to be more introverted. So getting comfortable sort of being a little more social. You don't have to be fake or anything like that, but you do have to become comfortable with people and know how to interact with people, because at the end of the day, if you're not enjoyable to work with, or you're annoying, or you're like rude, or whatever it might be, if you're just like aren't really sociable, it's going to be hard for people to want to work with you and hire you. And at the end of the day, people only work with people they like and hire, or like and know and trust. And so working on that like ability of like, okay, how do I present myself? How do I want to present myself? And how can I be of service to people? I think that's also a good mindset to have, is like being in service of others. And especially when it comes to this creative industry, it's such a vulnerable thing, right? Like creating art, or all these things like music or filmmaking or even photography. So you need to have that skill like with people. I think that's all. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Things to avoid. Don't be selfish and greedy. But let's avoid those things.
The like 7 sins, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's avoid the 7 sins here. Let's not get gluttonous, or do not cheat on your wife. Or I don't know. Whatever.
Rule of thumb.
Yeah, rule of thumb, guys.
Yeah.
No murdering for jobs or whatever. Yeah.
Good call.
Let's not do that. I don't know. I guess I wish I had like a better answer for you, but I just think the opportunity's there. You have to seize it. Be a little more bold. Don't be shy, like we said. Network. Your network is your net worth, as people love to say. So true. And I guess like the last thing I might say here is actually, you only ever fail when you decide to quit and stop. So as long as you're not doing that, you have a chance to make it. And I believe in most people. And there's so much resources online now too. I guess maybe I could recommend maybe get on The Future, learn a little bit about the business side of creative business, because we tend to just worry about the craft and like making the best product we can, when ultimately if you're trying to make it as a filmmaker or photographer or whatever the creative role you're trying to do, you need to actually understand somewhat of the business side as well. So yeah. No,
that makes sense. Yeah, all of that is beautiful. I find it to be beautiful advice. Yeah. It's especially the timeline, at least that's been a recent one for me, where it's like the timeline might shift, but as long as you're still in it, you are moving forward, even though it might not feel like you are. It's the simple fact of like continuing to be committed to the thing, and it helps to be like an incorporated LLC, right? You're like, well, I have a business now, so I'm staying in it even in the harder times. So
totally.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Bruno, for coming on. The last question we have is it is that time. The last person I spoke to left you the question, what was the last thing that brought you joy?
The last thing? Like, Oh, okay. I'll take that two directions maybe. The last thing that brought me joy, and I guess just because last sort of implies like recency, so I'm trying to think what is the most recent thing, and I guess the most recent thing is just my life here and my wife here in Oregon. I guess I just feel so ever grateful that I somehow stumbled upon Bend and I met Anna, who's my partner, and I guess that's what like brings me a lot of joy. It's just like whenever I come home or from a shoot or even from the gym, I just always love like being able to be with her and our like farmhouse because we have 3 dogs and 4 cats, and so it's a little farm that we always get home. So that's what brings me joy, I think. And then the second one, I was trying to think if it was more like maybe on a business or like a creative sense. The last thing that brought me joy, definitely that short film course I bought, because like so now I have like a small bank of ideas. And so like even though it hasn't been fleshed out yet, like the fact that I got to that first hump and I actually feel like, oh, there's like tangible material that I can work with here, I'm actually like really happy about. So I'm just excited to continue to actually start creating more of that stuff. And so we'll have to chat more about that because I don't know if you're interested in things like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what came to my mind too, because it's a piece of, I think it's fun asking the questions too, because I'm like, ooh, who's interested in like creating some cool pieces, not just for like the business side of things. So yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I love this conversation, and I'm stoked to like, yeah, I love seeing you around town, and also like and hopefully to be like on set in the future too. So it'll be a good time. Yeah. I was a friend of mine.